call this meeting, the special council meeting of April 9th, 2020 at 2 p.m. to order. First item is Pledge of Allegiance. Find a flag, folks, and I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the
Flag of the state of New Mexico and the Z symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Okay, everybody, welcome to our meeting. This is a special meeting, but it's also different, and we don't have any counselors here. Juan is sitting where he is today because Leota's running her live feed, and he needed to be in the shot for her. We'll start with approval of the agenda, but first, yes, that's what I was going to start with. We start with approval of the agenda, but since nobody's here, let's do a roll call just to see who all is here in the way of council members. So, Councilor Jaramillo?
Here.
Councilor Abraham?
Here.
Councilor Holly?
Here.
And Councilor Abrams?
I'm here.
We also have on hand today our legal counsel, Bill Czar from Robles Rael. He's also here by phone. So, councilors.
Hello.
Hello. So,
Hello.
Following the roll call, then, I'll ask for approval of the agenda, and we'll need to do it with a roll call vote, council.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve today's agenda.
I can't hear, I can't understand. What did he say?
He made a motion to approve today's agenda.
I'll second. This is Councilor Holly.
We've got a motion and a second. Start on that end, Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Holly.
Aye.
And Councilor Abrams.
Aye.
Okay.
It's really hard to hear
Councilor Abrams.
He's real muted. Is anybody else having problems hearing him?
Yes. Is this any better?
Keep talking, John. Can you hear it better now?
How about me? Is that better?
No, not really. You're like real echoey.
Let's see. How about now? Is it echoey?
A little better.
Hello?
I can't really hear.
Let me try something else. Okay, how about now?
That's better, yes.
Good to go?
How about that? Is that any better?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll go with it this way then.
Okay, so for the public watching this on Leota's Facebook and that, basically for public comment, what I need you to do is give me your names. I'm going to write them down here on the public comment sheet, just like if you were at the meeting, so I know who's going to be talking. And then once we have them, then we will go back and start from the first one down and let you speak. So go one at a time. Don't everybody go at once, but give me your names. Who wants to speak?
This is Tom McGill at 12 Buck Road. Thank you very much.
Martha Eden.
Hold on.
Martha Eden at,
You got a dog in this one.
Go ahead, Martha.
thank you, at 630 Lucas Road. I would like to donate my time to Jerry Powers.
Good.
Who's next?
Next.
Yeah, who's next?
This is Jerry Powers.
Okay. Who's next? Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak?
Yes, this
Yeah,
is Diane Sturley.
Say again?
Can you hear me? Diane Sturley.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'd like to donate my time also to Jerry Powers.
Who else wants to speak?
This is Bob Sturley. Donate my time to Jerry Powers.
Wow.
Anybody else?
Yeah, this is, Raymond. Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Raymond Figures. And I'd like to donate my time and have Jerry Powers speak on my behalf.
Next.
Other people. Anybody else?
This is Adrian Terry.
It's just wondering if who wants to speak. Nobody's donating their time to Jerry Powers.
Must be having a viewing party. Next.
That's one of the things that changed with the state citizens that old rule.
Is there anybody else who would wish to speak at public comment?
So do you want to listen in, or I think you can watch it on Facebook.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak?
Adrian Terry.
Okay, seeing none or hearing no more.
Muted.
So I have my list now for public comment. And the first person we'll go with is Tom McGill from 12 Buck Road. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Hi, this is Tom McGill from 12 Buck Road. The action item this afternoon is about when a special election will take place for the citizens to determine the representative form of government they want. Although there's only one clearly legal choice, it's appropriate as the government used the cover of Christmas to give themselves almost two additional years. Now it's Easter and it's time to double down. Time is important. The citizens need more input when the representative government is unelected. Decisions are being made in secrecy and darkness. Critical infrastructure is being neglected without a professional, technical town administrator. The town cannot tell me, for example, if they have been spraying toxins or diseases on the streets I walk.
Hold up, Tom. Hold it, Tom. Tom, hold it. Can the rest of you mute your phones so we don't get that feedback in the back? Try to be as quiet as you can so we can hear him. Go ahead, Tom.
All right, I'm going to go with time is important. Citizens need more input when the representative government is unelected. Decisions are being made in secrecy and darkness. Critical infrastructure is being neglected without a professional, technical town administrator. The town cannot tell me, for example, if they have been spraying toxins or diseases on the streets I walk, and won't tell me why they stopped and started buying water. They hired an out-of-state certificate, which is a waste and useless if the holder can't even visit the plant. We will spend another $1 million again this year to fix old problems, including pouring a concrete pad we have no intention of using. So when the time comes to choose whether to change your form of government, I acknowledge that no form will work if we don't elect representatives of good character, whatever their politics. I think this afternoon is going to be a good test of that, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Mr. Mayor, this is Counselor Abraham.
What's the problem, Counselor?
I have a question. Is this being recorded by the town so that we can listen to this later?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Next one then is Martha Eden, who donated to Jerry Powers. So Jerry Powers, go ahead. Let's see, that'll give you,
Can you hear me?
yeah, you got 10 minutes.
Okay. I didn't realize everybody was going to donate their time. I knew a couple were, but I'll try to do justice to their donations. I wrote a letter to each one of you on the town government that regarding this particular decision, because I think it's a monumental decision for the town of Edgewood, in that there has been so much conflict and controversy over the actions of the town government that we wouldn't even be here on this special election question had it not been for the upset of the town people feeling like they don't have any input into their own town government.
Mr. Powers, just hold up just a second. I've been asked to ask if you all would speak a little bit slower so you come across better on the audio.
Okay, I'll try to slow it down. So people felt the result of this petition that spurred the special election is because people have the feeling like they don't have any say in their own town government anymore after it happens, and no accountability for the decisions that are being made. As Tom McGill said, this is a perfect opportunity to reestablish trust with the townspeople by doing the right thing in this particular regard. I know that Adrian Terry wrote a letter to you all outlining where he disagrees with your attorney with regard to allowing this to be put on the November ballot. There is one clear form of election, that's the special election in August, that they both agree is a perfectly legal and viable option. The other advantage that it has, besides being without controversy, it won't spur a legal challenge. There could be a legal challenge if this vote goes toward the November election, because it does not appear, it's never mentioned in the statute that it could happen in November. It only talks about August in two different places, July and August of even numbered years. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to debate that, but I know that two different attorneys can have two different opinions, and that's what creates great lawsuits with lots of time and expense. So you have the opportunity to vote in the one non-controversial election, which is the special election in August, that both attorneys agree on is a viable option. And on the other hand, it also protects the health of the Edgewood constituents that you represent, because the mail-in ballot is being considered by jurisdictions all over the country. Those that haven't adopted special mail-in ballots have seen abysmal turnout. So democracy is being sacrificed because people are rightfully considering their health and staying home rather than exercising their right to vote. So besides not being controversial and protecting the health of their constituents, I believe that it would be a big step in restoring some measure of faith of the residents in the town democratic process. There was a lot of dissatisfaction and upset about the town governing body extending their terms for nearly 2 years rather than reducing them for 3 years, which would have preserved the principles of democracy and stayed within the elected term. They all were elected for 4 years. now they're going to be up for 6 years. This election could have an impact in restoring that faith. And if you all have confidence in your ability to carry out the will of the people, then there would be no question about being reelected at another commissioner election. But the people, I think, would be incensed if they feel like a second time that their democratic rights are being violated. Because if you all put this off to November, as you know, that means that the commissioner elections wouldn't happen until November of 2021, which is the exact election date that the people are so incensed about having your terms extended toward. So you have an opportunity here to do something that will not spur any controversy, will not spur any legal actions, that is permissibly allowed and actually required by the statute, and that will meet the needs of the people to feel like they have a say in their government again. So I'm asking you to do the right thing here and vote it in for the August special election, protect the health of your constituents, and restore faith in the democracy of the town of Edgewood. Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Next person signed up then is Adrian Terry. You got 2 minutes, sir. Mr. Terry, are you there? Mr. Terry, are you there? Mr. Terry, are you still trying to talk?
I'm not trying to talk. I'm listening.
This is Adrian Terry.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to take this opportunity.
Could the rest of you hold it down while he talks? Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I wanted to take this opportunity to inform the governing body that I did send them some correspondence with my position with respect to the timelines of the calling for and holding of a special election. I'm willing to stand for any questions if there are any.
To rent a skid steer and wants you to deliver it tomorrow morning, but he wants to pay over the phone somehow.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear what is happening, what's being said.
Okay, well, I don't know how many miles it's going to be.
Something is garbled and something is screeching and...
I hear it too. Mr. Terry, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Tell everybody else to mute your phones, everybody else. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Terry.
Thank you. I'm here to take this opportunity to let the governing body know that I did submit a letter regarding the timelines for the special election on the ballot initiative in August of 2020 as opposed to at the general election. I wanted to let the governing body know that I'm willing to stand for any questions if there are any, but the information that is outlined in the document I believe to be self-explanatory, and hopefully it's as clear as possible. I did see the town attorney's letter in the town's agenda packet for this meeting. I had an opportunity to review that document, and it is my opinion that the town attorney's letter is excellently written and accurate in many respects, including that the town can hold the special election in the timelines provided by the statute for the change in government to the commission manager model. Now, one of the things that I think is most important that I'd like to point out in my opinion letter is that when you have two statutes that are in conflict,
and that appears to be the case with respect to the town attorney's alternative position that the election can be delayed until November. More specific statutes governing the same subject matter are the statutes that apply. They create an exception to the general rule. And in this instance, it is only the municipal code that provides the process for changing the form of government for the town to the commission manager model. Those provisions are more specific with respect to this change in government than are the general provisions of the election code, which are cited in the town attorney's letter. For that reason, it's my contention, and I think I've given you all the supporting information as a matter of law, that the municipal code should govern over the election code with respect to this ballot initiative. Additionally, I would say, and echo the points of Jerry Powers, that this election, if held according to the strict timelines under the municipal code, would do a lot to restore faith and trust in local government, and that's something that we're looking for. We certainly think it's something that's very important for the councilors to understand and to implement as we go forward. To follow the will of the people, and in this case, the will of the people is to have an election on this new form of government. Whether it passes or fails is subject to the voters, and I'm not here suggesting that it will pass, but at least we should have the opportunity to vote on the issue. It's very important to our democracy. Additionally, I'd like to talk about the costs. As I read the town attorney's letter, one of the things that I found troubling.
Mr. Terry, Mr. Terry, you've run over your time. I'll give you a few more seconds to wrap it up, but we did give you extra time. So if you could, just go ahead and wrap it up.
I'll wrap it up in about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Here. The only point that I want to say is the town attorney's letter suggested that the town could achieve cost savings by delaying the election to November. But Mr. Powers had an opportunity to confer with the county clerk, and they told him that a special election would cost about $2.50 per voter. We think that's a small price to pay to maintain democracy in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that tried to call in that didn't get through the first time?
This is Sabina Price. I would like to say something.
Okay, hang on a minute. Let me get your name. Okay, Ms. Price, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I would like to call upon each individual here, specifically the council members, to follow the demands of the residents of Edgewood. You have pledged an oath to represent your town and keep every individual in mind. Remember, you have been elected to represent every single resident, not a few, but all. Please remember, many people can't or are afraid of voicing their fears because of retaliation. Having our current government body act as irresponsible as they have been would guarantee major ongoing conflict. Acting foolish on your part could result in serious legal challenges. And if you follow the demands of the voters, you don't have a choice but to honor the obligation you have to the residents. You took an oath when you took this office. It is time to do the right thing and put peace back into this town. We need to be good neighbors, and it is time to act in the best interest of this town and not the governing council or any individual on the body of the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Hello, can you state your name?
Can you hear me, John?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is Linda Sparling. I've been kind of listening here, and I want to put my vote in that I would like to have a special election in August. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to speak? Okay, hearing nobody, we'll close public comment.
Unmuted.
You sure on that? Okay. So, moving down the agenda here, the next item is action items. And let me see here. Find what I was. So moving into action items, then I'll ask for a motion to approve Town of Edgewood Resolution Number 2020-06, an election resolution.
Mr. Mayor?
Hello?
Mr. Mayor?
Hold on. Chair hasn't recognized anybody to speak yet. Mr. Abrams, you were speaking?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make the motion to approve the Town of Edgewood Resolution 2020-06, an election resolution calling for the question to be added to the ballot of the New Mexico general election to be held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, on the question of whether the Town of Edgewood should form as a commission manager form of government.
Do I have a second?
This is Counselor Holly, I'll second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded to approve Town of Edgewood Resolution Number 2020-06, an election resolution calling for a question to be added to the ballot for the New Mexico general election to be held Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, on the question of whether the Town of Edgewood should form as a commission manager form of government. Discussion? That's what I'm trying to do.
Abrams, who made the motion,
Counselor, let me
and then
ask,
I do have comments.
let me speak to him, Counselor. Counselor Abrams, you made the motion, you go first.
Mr. Mayor, having looked at the timelines for a special election to be called in August, and with the current issues that we see with elections pretty much all over the country, and with the Supreme Court motion in Wisconsin recently, I think calling for election in August is a far larger risk than Mr. Terry or Mr. Powers have intimated. And I also have a funny feeling that we're going to be in a very interesting situation with our primary election, and the timeline. The timeline is just too tight. What we're going to see in the not so far distant future, I'm sure, is a legal challenge to the decision today if we move forward with this motion. However, I think it is in the general best interest not only of the town, but of each individual person in the town. We will vote on this one way or the other. A decision will be handed down, and we will move on. Beyond that, I'll stand and hope to call for the vote shortly.
Counselor Holly, you seconded the motion. You go ahead with your comments.
All right. The November election option, in my opinion, is consistent with what the previous vote and decision by this council decided back in December 19th of 2018. At that time, this council voted unanimously to opt into the new election cycle outlined in the Local Election Act passed by the New Mexico legislature that year. The driving factors of that decision by this council were the cost savings to the town by combining all nonpartisan elections on the same ballot, and the potential increase in voter turnout by holding all elections in November, because typically standalone elections have poor voter turnout. None of these factors have changed since our vote in 2018. If this ballot question is put to the voters in November, it will save the town the cost of a special election with a potentially larger voter turnout, especially due to the presidential election this year. Thank you.
Counselor Jaramillo?
Yes, I do have quite a few comments for discussion here. First off, I just wanted to say that I believe
that government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And the emails and phone calls that I have received, I have only received one email that was in favor of having this election in November. We had about 10 emails that Juan just emailed to us, approximately more or less, that were in favor of August. And then on the phone today, I don't believe I heard anyone that was in favor of November. So I believe that we should listen to the public. We should let voters decide on this issue, which is the reason why I signed the petition. The petition, in itself is not taking one side or the other. The petition is to allow the voters to vote, right? In one email, I did the one that was in favor of putting this in November, said that otherwise it would be rushing an election. And I thought to myself, well, then ask the legislature why they wrote the statute that way if you think it's rushing it, because they made the decision in the language that it must be in August. We didn't make that decision. So if you read the attorney's letters, it's very, very clear to me that this is not an issue of timing. This is an issue of that we shall call a special election. And in this case, needs to be August. And it's right there in the language in black and white. I think I heard Mr. Powers say that it would be non-controversial to have the August special election. And I do believe from what I've heard and read and had calls that people are against this. And with all due respect, Councilor Hawley and Councilor Abrams, you really need to look at how the public views this, okay? So remember that the vote to opt in, which included extending our terms, unfortunately, included that all in the same vote, that really upset people. They felt like that was taking away their democratic right, the democracy, and their right to vote at the 4-year mark. So essentially what you're doing, if you do vote for this motion in second, you are yet again defying the will of the people to vote on their elected officials and yet again extending your terms. So, for me, I'm listening. I don't want to defy the public. And I think it's the right thing to do and a non-controversial thing to do to call this special election. I also take very seriously public safety and public health. Now, having the special election will prevent people having to come and stand in lines and vote in person because it's a mail-in ballot. That protects the health of people. We do not know where this virus is going to go, what state everything is going to be in by August or even in November. It could come back full force in the winter. You've heard that on the news. So the safe thing to do for our people of this town would be to do a mail-in ballot. The cost is something like 0.002% of our budget. I mean, we probably spend more on that 3 times as much for office supplies, right? I also think that from the letter I read, I believe from Mr. Powers, that, and even Councilor Abrams, you acknowledged this could lead to a lawsuit. Well, why would you want to invite that? There's no need. There's just really really no need to wait until November. There's no necessity to wait until November. So why would you even put yourself in the place of the expense and the headache and the time and the energy of a lawsuit? I also want to address voter turnout, because that's been brought up by Councilor Hurley, and it's also been brought up by the one letter I received, the one opinion that we should wait until November. And I just need to point out that in 2018, APS that did a special election, normally their walk-in elections have 3 to 4% turnout. The mail-in ballot had 28.7% turnout. Now, you can't tell me we're going to have a better turnout in November than a mail-in ballot, based on those statistics, okay? So if we want to hear from the majority, more people of the town, if this is some change of model of government that we want, and we want more people voting on it, the logical choice is to go with August. The other thing that I do need to bring up is the language on the resolution. And I just needed to point out that we need to match it up to page 4 of our training letter, section B for the ballot language, where we need to have the 2 lines that say for the commission manager model and then against, so that there's 2 separate lines. Because I think the way the resolution has it right now is a little confusing. So hopefully we could amend that with our final vote here. But I would just say that it's the right thing to do to have this in August, and there's no compelling reason to wait until November, but there are many, many valid reasons to have it in August.
Councilor Abraham, do you have some comments?
I do. I have several also. The first comment that I want to make is this was not a unanimous decision. I specifically did not vote to extend my term. This happened to be the night that I was verbally attacked by both you, Mayor, and Councilor Abrams, at which point I got up. I was so distressed, I got up and walked out of the meeting. So I never had the opportunity to vote on whether we wanted to extend or shorten our terms. So I need to clarify that. The next thing I need to say is that somebody said if we do it in August, it's rushing. Let me remind everyone we should have had an election in March of 2020. So this is past due, not rushing. We should have had an election where the people have the opportunity to vote us in or out of office. They were denied that opportunity. The next thing I want to say is I want to read directly from the New Mexico One Source Chapter 3 for municipalities. We're looking at 3-14-2, Commission Manager Special Election for Adoption. I'm reading this word for word. It says, A, upon petition signed by qualified electors, not less in number than 15% of the votes cast for the office of mayor at the last regular municipal election, filed with the municipal clerk and verified by the municipal clerk to contain a sufficient number of legal signatures, the governing body shall, within 10 days of verification, adopt an election resolution calling for the holding of a special election on the question of organizing the municipality under the commission manager form of government. Or the governing body may submit to the qualified electors of the municipality the question of organizing the municipality under the commission manager form of government. The election shall be held in June or July in odd-numbered years, or July or August in even-numbered years, in accordance with the provision of the Local Elections Act, Chapter 1, Article 22, NMSA 1978. The question to be placed shall read substantially as for the commission manager form of government and providing for the election of 5 commissioners, and against the commission manager form of government and providing for the election of 5 commissioners. I don't see anywhere in there where it's ambiguous about when we should have the special election. And so my point of consideration is we've heard from the public. We have denied them one vote already. Do we want to do that again? The next point I want to make is that this is a very difficult meeting to hear and to understand what other counselors are saying. I think it's very unfair the way that Counselor Abrams jumped in and made a motion without us even discussing the second option. The way these were placed on the agenda led to that, and I think instead of having an A and a B, I think we should have had both for discussion and then made the motion. So I'm highly upset with the whole way this agenda was posted, only 26 minutes before the deadline of the Open Meetings Act, that it's held in the manner that it's being held, where we can't talk to each other or see each other. And I'm just very upset over the whole thing. So I think we have done a very poor job of listening to our public once again, and that we are just railroading whatever decisions have already been made prior to listening to the public. That's my comment.
Okay. I'd like to comment on a few of these things myself. As far as the situation with the agenda, we did that in consultation with legal. That seemed to be the best way to put it on there, so that's how that went. One thing I'm kind of amused about all this stuff about doing what the people want, I go back to the minutes from December 19th, 2018. I have a copy here in my hand. And I come to this item here about the Local Election Act. And basically, we had a situation there where we had 2 meetings in a row with the county clerk down here, explaining what was the situation, what the changes would be at AL. Our attorneys were here at those meetings. Everybody got filled in about it. That night, we managed to have 3 people from all of Edgewood, 3 people showed up to speak to this matter. Susan Simons, former Counselor Chuck Ring, and Karen Kaiser. Every one of them said, do it. Opt into this new cycle. Susan Simons stated she thought should be the shortened term option. The other 2 had no comment about it. This was done at a public meeting. For those of you who can see it, there's a date and a time and stuff, everything on it. It was a public hearing. Everything was went over. And the counselors who could bother to be here and make themselves available did vote unanimously for it. Now, I don't know why Counselor Abraham left. She did. That's her business. But the way the system works is you got to be here. Randy Van Vlex told us many times, your vote is your voice. The other one I have kind of found quite humorous is this talk about, well, if don't do it, why, they'll sue us. Well, I've been sued by this crowd. I didn't think I did anything that warranted it, but I've been sued by them. So you don't have to really do a whole lot to get sued by them. They'll do it for nothing. But Mr. Powers did put in his stuff about, well, you can do this real cheap. The county will work it for little or nothing. It costs you about $9,000 or something, he says. That's kind of funny coming from him because he put his letter to the editor in the paper, and one of his biggest complaints was about the town extending sewer lines costing the town millions of dollars. They're ever vigilant that we're wasting millions of dollars. So here we come to a situation where, you know, it's quite clear one of them will be almost free or almost free, will be free or almost free in November versus the other one costing the town a lot of money. And that's just ludicrous. I mean, to say in one letter, well, you know, spend some money, but in another letter, well, you're a crook, you know, you're wasting millions of dollars. That don't jive. We got the matter then with Mr. Terry's letter. So Mr. Terry, he comes along and he gives us a lot of legal stuff, and then he switches to some political statements. And he says the citizens of the town of Edgewood were denied their opportunity to vote in March of 2020 upon the governing body's ill-advised decision to extend their terms of office by nearly 2 years. Well, we were advised that night by the citizens who could be bothered to show up that night, which did not include Adrian Terry or Jerry Powers or Tom McGill, that in fact they wanted us to opt into that. So we did in fact follow the will of the people, again, who could be bothered to show up that night. Now, the other thing is, he says, well, you should have shortened your term by 3 months. And if we had done that, Mr. Terry, basically we would have still opted into the Local Election Act. And there still would not have been a March 2020 election. So I think we did everything right. We had our experts here, the county clerk, the attorney. We chewed on this thing pretty good. It was at publicly held meetings, which people could have got out and went to, including a lot of those people who sent in their late last-minute emails today. Nobody bothered to get out and go to it, and the ones that did all said, join in. I know that because I'm sitting right here with the minutes that had that in it. Now, sounds like what we've got is a situation where all of a sudden this has come up. That's December of 2018 when that happened. We're nearly a year and a half later. I'm always wondering, because I've got this lawsuit against me, plus this thing, what happened here a year and a half later to suddenly make this a big deal? There's other issues in that lawsuit. They all happened a long time ago. Suddenly, they're a big deal. All of a sudden, oh, well, this is all of a sudden life or death. We've got to do all this. These decisions were made. Nobody said anything. We went along for a year and a half, and then suddenly we have these ads here coming in. Oh, got a big meeting up at Legacy Church. And what does it say on it? Whoa, they're stealing the election from us.
Point of order, Mayor, point of order.
No, I get to speak. I get to speak. I am chairing this meeting. I get to speak. I didn't stop any of you from speaking. So here we have this about, oh, they're stealing an election. They extended their terms. They claim we violated some law. You people out there need to know the legislature passed that law, that Local Election Act, and it gave that option to the towns to do that. Here is a list of towns that also did that across New Mexico. Mr. Powers tells us there's a constitutional issue there. Well, he's going to have to buck a whole lot of towns that done that. The majority of them appear to have done just that, extended their terms. So I don't know where anybody comes off saying this is suddenly a surprising development here that, oh, well, you're stealing elections, you're doing all this. No, we followed the law. We had the attorneys here. We did everything right. The difference was the people who now show so much concern and care couldn't even be bothered to show up and watch it in real time. It helps us up here. We're always accused of doing a bad job. It helps us up here if we get feedback in real time. I feel like in a way that I'm looking at stuff that happened a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, and it's like, well, where were you at then? Maybe we would have done something different, but you weren't here. Now, all of a sudden, worlds are colliding. Now we've got to do something about this. This is wrong. To have somebody come from way out of left field months, years after the thing was dealt with, and dealt with correctly, and then start, oh, well, we've got to relitigate this. We've got to go over this again and try to figure it out. It's like there are new standards imposed retroactively on those old decisions and stuff, and then they say, well, now, here's our new standards, and you failed to meet them 18 months ago. That's not fair. It's not fair to us on the council, to staff, or anybody else to be thrown into a situation where, well, we've developed these new standards, and suddenly we find you lacking. 18 months ago, you didn't follow this and do it right. And it's like, that's not fair. That's not how the game's played. You people want to make these decisions and that, get in here in real time. That's when your opportunity to address this is. And I'm very proud of the job we've done my time in here of listening to people come in. We've worked on numerous ordinance revisions and stuff, the comp plan rewrite. The public was very well involved in all of that, and I think the outcomes were good. This stuff here, I'm a guy that looks at it like, I thought all that stuff was put to bed years ago. Here it is back. We got to relitigate this. I disagree with that. I think we can do fine having the vote in November, and that's what we ought to do.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir? Counselor Jaramillo, Mr. Abrams got the floor first. Go ahead, Mr. Abrams.
Mr. Mayor, I call the question.
Okay, the question's been called.
Mayor, you do need to allow for a second round of comments, and also I had mentioned a motion that needs to be made on the language.
Counselor, the question has been called. Mr. Abrams, did you have something else to say?
I was going to say that I have called the question.
Right. Question's been called, so I'm going to read off again what it is, and we will take the vote on it. So
I'm going to ask you to reconsider.
There's nothing to reconsider. He's asked for the question to be called. Now it's time to step up and read it and call for the vote.
We're cutting off our ability to debate and discuss, and even to amend the language that needs to be amended to match our attorney's recommendation.
Mr. Czar, are you on there?
Yes.
Did you hear Counselor Jaramillo's statement?
It had to do with, I believe Councilor Jaramillo has a question on the actual ballot question.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Right.
That it is not identical to subsection B of section 3-14-2. Am I correct, Counselor?
Counselor Jaramillo? He asked you if that language, in other words, your question was the language wasn't consistent with what he'd put in his letter regarding the question?
Right, so on page 4 of our attorney's letter, section B, the ballot language specifically lists out 4, and it, describes it just as the statute says, and then it has a second option against, and just as the statute says. And I'm saying that our resolution needs to reflect the attorney's recommended language in compliance with the state statute.
Counselor, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Counselor, can you hear me now?
Yes.
She said yes.
Okay. Okay. The statute says that it shall be substantially the form of, and I believe that what is on there is substantial compliance with how the question is worded. As a matter of how things are put on the ballot, they usually say, if it's a bond question, shall a bond be approved for this? And then it is for or against other. They don't necessarily always repeat the question twice, for or against. The way that the question is placed on that ordinance, I believe, substantially complies with.
Did you hear that, Counselor? He says it substantially complies with it.
Okay, did you get cut off?
No, he's still there.
Are you still there?
Mr. Czar, are you still there?
I can hear you. I am.
He's still there, Counselor.
Okay. So my understanding is that the way it is on the resolution is the way it will be on the ballot, right?
Yes, I think that the for or against will go. I think that the clerk put that underneath as the line that you would check. For it, against the proposition. So it would read that way. They would just put the for or against probably underneath. That's
the bubble.
How it's done.
The little bubble that you fill in.
I'm sorry.
She's asking
to hear me?
if she's asking if that would be where the little bubble is that you fill in on the ballot.
The for or against. Yeah, the question would be on the top. And instead of it being repeated like once affirmatively affirmatively being for and negatively being against, repeating it twice, I've seen them done where it's shall the town of Edgewood be governed by the commission manager form of government and including 5 commissioners, and then for or against. So I believe that substantially complies with with subsection B.
Okay, thank you for addressing my concern.
You're welcome.
Okay, the question has been called. I'm going to read it again. This is what we're looking at. Approval of Town of Edgewood Resolution Number 2020-06, an election resolution calling for a question to be added to the ballot for the New Mexico general election to be held Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, on the question of whether the Town of Edgewood should form as a commission manager form of government. We'll do this as a roll call vote. We'll start over here. Councilor Jaramillo.
Nay, and I want the record to reflect that this is real time.
Councilor Abraham.
Nay, I want the record to reflect I would prefer a special election.
Councilor Holly.
Aye.
Councilor Abrams.
Aye.
Okay, we've reached a tie vote. In that case, the mayor votes. Mayor votes aye. Next item then is adjournment. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Just a comment that I feel like council should be meeting to address public safety and to get a message out there to them that we are addressing this. The governor, cabinet, like I emailed, is encouraging all local governments to continue operating. So I am upset that we canceled our meeting to discuss this. So I wanted to request a meeting and find out if there's 2 others who
Do we
want to
have a
have a
second
meeting
on the
as
motion
well.
to adjourn?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. Start on that end. Councilor Abrams, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Nay, I think we still have discussion being made.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Nay.
Mayor, we have a tie vote on a motion to adjourn. Mayor votes aye. We are adjourned.